to Eastern Africa, you'll get it called Ugali. The same food going to South Africa, within the Soto, the Tswana, the Zulu, they call it pap. Hello family and friends, welcome back to Try Africa podcast, where we dive deep into the hearts of developing nations and their journey towards prosperity. I'm always your host Zablon Magona, and today's episode, as I already indicated in this video, we want to talk about how foods are the preservation of traditions and our own culture. If I have to start from, let's just go back in history where we were talking about being hunters and gatherers, a few people who have been back in the developing nation. I think that is the main source of what we have been doing as far as our food is concerned. From that perspective, it directly means that we relied on our geographical context to have what we call food by that time. We used to eat what was availed by nature to us. That created the base of what food is over the time. There have been different transformations, but before we go to the transformation, let's look on how people and their own environment came together or correlate such that if I'm a person who am close to the ocean or close to lake, I'll depend too much on food like fish. Geographically, the environment surrounding us was the source of food. Human beings have been living, if you are a gatherer, you are living in vegetables, eat that and everything. That used to be our source of food. And the people who we eat meat, or some of us who eat meat, we also depended on the environment that we are living. Someone who is maybe an animal that exists within the pole of the earth could not be consumed within the equator of the globe. This way simply shows that our foods were predicted with the places we are. Now, moving forward from that era is when now human beings believe that we need to grow our own foods. Now, if you check on how these foods have been transforming, it is basically what nature gave us. We are improving it for our own existence. So there are some foods that were specifically meant within a geographical landscape. That food describes even the people that are living in that place. The foods are also, even if you check their names, they represent a language from where that food was mostly used or mostly cooked. This simply tells you that even foods are fixed in how our traditionals are. Now, let's move further on the way foods have been transforming. Let's use the example of fufu, a Western Africa food. The same food, when you go to Eastern Africa, you'll get it called Ugali. The same food going to South Africa, within the Soto, the Tswana, the Zulu, they call it pap. So you can just imagine how different a same commodity, but based in different societies, it has changed its name. So the significance here comes on the aspect of our foods. If I have to preserve my Ugali, that means I'm preserving my own language, my own culture, and that is my own food. So the element of food itself, it preserves what defines me. But if we move further, apart from the way the society, the environment is providing us to make sure that we still maintain our tradition, look to where the levels of food improvement have been done. Today, there are people who will wish, or in one way or the other, they have get an improvement on their level of life, the status of life. Someone is now moving maybe abroad. He get to this life of new foods, that is maybe pizza, burger, and all of those sorts. I don't want to go to the history of all those foods. My issue is the same person will come back and be given a meal based on his traditional lifestyle, which preserves its own native, and perceive it as it's not a good meal to him. There is where my problem starts. If you have to maintain and preserve our culture, our heritage, then even foods that forms a source of our own preservation must be preserved in that manner. We need to advocate for what has been maintained to remain true with us. The issue and the problem, and this is a little bit of the way forward, is that we stopped improving our own foods. We all understand that the carrot that we are using today, it was not the carrot that nature provided 100 years back. The kind of meat that we are taking from chicken today is not the kind of meat chicken provided 100 years. It simply tells us that human beings have been improving their own source of food. But even though we are improving the source of food, majority of the societies that have been improving the foods, they have also preserved their food. You can see someone telling you it's a chicken, but it's a biryani. The biryani that you are getting it today is not just a matter of it being today. No, it have 1,000 of years back. You can see it's not just the chicken that has been maintained, but also the biryani. And not only the biryani, but also the ingredients of the biryani. Move part and further of that, it's also the language, also the recipe. That whole ecosystem becomes like an identity to those people. This element that we have stopped improving our own foods, it destroys our own preservation. If I have just to go back and look for any example back at home, tell me in the recent maybe 50 years, which kind of a crop that has been provided by nature back in Africa that have been taken from the world, improved, and maintain its source and its identity for the purpose of being consumed by the community. No, there is no one, and no one. I remember back home there is a crop called palamanje. It's something that looks like a bean, but it is very tough. But I have been seeing it over and over again, but I have ever seen its improvement. It has ever been improved, not the GMO or modified one, but it has ever been modified to a level where we can say this one has been crossbreeded to bring it to have the best version of it. We have not done that way. And by not doing that way, we are destroying the existence of that culture, of that representative, of that language, of that simple commodity that represent that was food to us. I'll move forward and give such a scenario where a learned fellow who is moving outside Africa, going back to another place, getting to these new foods, get its taste, and then coming back to the same society and wants to prove to the same community that the local food is not a food to him. My guy, let me just laugh at you. It is high time you stop that mentality. And believe me, if this kind of food have preserved your lineage over years, why do you think that the current food that you are calling it food is better than the other one? You have been made genetically from the kind of foods your forefathers were using. Today you are saying what they have been doing is not the right. It's high time, guys, we still preserve our own foods. Let's make our own recipes. Let's maintain our own ingredients. Let's perceive our foods as source of our own, our identity, because that is part and parcel of our tradition. Guys, let me get your replies, comments in the comment section. But furthermore, give me different foods that you think they require to be improved. That's was my time. Till next time, I'm out.